Man, he did whisper me a little bit. He said, nice prediction on Battle B, by the way. I wouldn't have called that. And I was like, yeah, that's right, mate. That's right. In the bottom left side, we are looking at the main base of our Italian Zerg, representing Basilisk, back in the Netherlands, where he's sharing an apartment with Skillis. This is Reynor.
And in the upper right, in the red, for CSO Esports, he is the Russian Zerg, YoungYakov. You know, Roddy, one thing I guess we do have to consider is we talk about how things may or may not go. Seems like Reynor might have a bit of the content creator buff. You know, he started to make all these YouTube videos, he's streaming more, and as we all know with the career trajectories of Euthermal, clearly, when you start doing all those things, you get better. So everything I'm saying about Reynor maybe not practicing as much, I mean, who knows where his ZVZ is? That might be, you know, ameliorated a little bit by the fact that he's got that content creator buff.
Maybe. But I think overall we don't have to worry about Reynor's motivation. Like, Reynor is a guy that throughout StarCraft 2 history has taken some time off from the game from time to time. But that's okay, because the months where he pushes himself, he works incredibly hard. He can play 8-10 hours a day. And often we even say that once you've reached the level of a guy like Sero, Maru, Reynor, these guys, they don't need to play 6 to 8 hours because they already have it. They just kind of need to get back into the swing of things, and taking a bit of time off from time to time is healthy. But I think at the moment, Reynor's motivation, there's nothing wrong with it. He wants to do well for Basilisk in the WTL. He wants to do well, obviously, at the DreamHack Masters Europe Regionals, because I'm sure that he still has some sleepless nights about the last time we ran this event, which was August, September last year. We can't forget that Reynor had a 3-0 lead in the grand finals over Clem, before Clem started that epic comeback and won 4 games in a row and crowned himself European champion once more. Reynor wants revenge. To do that, he obviously needs to take care of a lot of good players in the European scene, not just Clem. And I guess his journey starts off here with YoungYakov, but we don't have to worry about the young man. He still loves the game. He has a good time playing StarCraft, and I think it's only awesome that he also enjoys streaming and also enjoys making YouTube videos.
Yeah, and by the way, just to be clear, I'm not saying that, oh, wow, you know, he's making YouTube videos, that's going to make him worse. That's not even tongue-in-cheek. But it is going to be interesting. Again, we've been talking about this. Reynor, in the last 28 days, like recently leading up to this, he's got a sub 60% ZVZ win rate. If there is one matchup where I'm going to say he's vulnerable, yeah, losing to Soul Spirit last year, the aforementioned hard to find, not even motivation of not practicing, but just really hard to find ZVZ practice partners in Europe. Well, we're going to have to see if that really matters. But for now, YoungYakov, he decided to go for a Baneling Nest. Reynor has not, and with 12 Lings on the way, this is not going to be enough to go for, to call an all-in, but this is going to be a little bit of Ling Bane pressures. Now Lings, they find their way onto onto YoungYakov's third, but Yakov is going to have more than enough to defend. Reynor, though, Roddy, on the other side, that's Carapace on the way. And it seems like that's just how people are playing. You go for Roach Carapace all-ins or Roach Ling Carapace all-ins, and it works out pretty well for you.
One of the 2 Banelings has already been detonated, by the way, so it seems that Reynor got a good little trade there. But obviously, Reynor will always be happy with more Lings, more Banelings, and is indeed going to rally everything to the other side of the map. We know that's not happening. We can see that the Russian Zerg is just droning up and is just kind of only making defensive Banelings. And Reynor is just kind of trying to force out a couple of errors. So far, I think YoungYakov is holding his own and is honestly not making a lot of slip-ups. Maybe could have saved 1 or 2 bangs, but pretty good defense initially here by YoungYakov.
Honestly, the Bane or the Ling micro out of Reynor has been really nice. He's triggered, I think, 3 or 4 Banes to really no gain. And, you know, we might as well say, it's easy to say, oh, of course we expect that. You know, these are the best players in the world, but it is not easy to do, not when managing everything else. But you talk about the Baneling Nest being a bit surprising. Well, Reynor's got 8 Banelings morphing in. Now, good news, YoungYakov is aware of this. Bad news, it's still happening. Carapace is about 20-25 seconds from completion, so this timing from Reynor, it's a bit of an anti-timing. He's hitting before everything's ready, but now Lings find their way into the main base. YoungYakov dealing with that one. Banelings come trundling in. Great connection there from Yakov. Takes a positive trade, but the Lings, are they going to be too much here? Now, Queen in the wall. Banelings are not ready just yet. Carapace done now, so now it's 2 Banes to kill a Ling, and this becomes even more problematic as the Banelings continue to fall down. Now, okay, there we go. They're going to get taken out. And it seems like Reynor just has enough to outmuscle here. The Baneling Nest now going to come under threat. Drones are going to get pulled with 8 workers going down. And it seems like, well, actually, so the Roaches pop. Yeah, even still, Reynor, he's got too many lings, he's got too many banes, he's gonna punch right on through.
No, all the drones are clumped up on the extractor and all of them will go down to the final 2 banelings of Reynor. Reynor just does Reynor things there, because often when we have a big favorite going up against a big underdog, you can really see where they make the difference, right? It's just X, Y, or Z goes a little bit better. I don't think there was one big thing that really went wrong there for YoungYakov. And on top of that, I think this was a surprising build to go up against, right? Like at first you scout, you see the Evo chamber, you see it's wriggling. I don't think he was quite certain. Now, he did see all those banelings morph, not immediately, but there was an overlord that kind of gave him the heads up by the time these banes were pretty much done. He tried to get defensive banelings up. He had indeed that favorable trade where it was 2 banelings for YoungYakov against the 3 banes of Reynor. It's just that Reynor truly went pedal to the metal and had a crazy amount of additional links flooding in, and once +1 carapace kicked in, it was just a bit too much to deal with. Like maybe a safety spine would have really helped YoungYakov there, but you don't want to be that guy that's like building static defenses when you're already the underdog, because then you feel like you're just going to put yourself too far behind in certain scenarios. Like, I thought YoungYakov actually hang in there in a pretty great manner for quite some time, but in the end, Reynor just had a few too many units and had very good link control towards the end.
That he did, and yeah, it was just a little bit too much momentum, and I think you're right, though. It's interesting to see Reynor hitting an anti-timing for positive effect, right? I think Yakov had a solid idea of, okay, you know, this is when Carapace hits, this is how I defend, roaches were going to pop out in time, but Reynor hit 20 seconds early. And all of a sudden, all that preparation was not there yet. And then once you punch through the first time, then Carapace is ready. And as long as you take those good first trades, it's going to work out for you. Now, again, it seems like this is a common story. We had the short map. We had the all-in. We're moving on to Grestfund, though. It's a much bigger map. Let's see what happens. Does YoungYakov have what it takes to take us to Game 3?
It's going to be hard to imagine that even if the roaches would have been out a little bit earlier, if that would have made all the difference. Like, to stabilize on 2 bases, absolutely. But I do not believe that this man was ever okay with stabilizing on 2 bases, right? He obviously wanted to defend all 3 hatcheries, and that would have been hard. I think just having a spine, having queens extra in position, and having banelings for days, maybe that would have been the correct answer against what Reynor was throwing at him. In the bottom right side, we are looking at the main base of the Russian Zerg. Hang in there. Unfortunately, it was not quite enough. Representing CSO, this is YoungYakov.
And in the upper left, he's up 1 here with an early pool, early gas. Reynor pulling out all the stops in Game 2.
Could very well lead into more aggression coming out of this man. If we think back of some of the glory days of Reynor ZVZ, where he was one of the very few players on the entire planet that could make Sero bleed, when Sero was, I don't want to say in his prime, because Sero's entering another prime, as he's just not losing a single game at the moment, but when Sero was completely dominating, Reynor often found success while being the aggressor, right? Like, Reynor did his best work when he was the one bringing the fight to Sero, rather than sitting back and letting Sero attack him. So maybe Reynor has just kind of looked at a couple of games and he's like, you know what? What made me exceptionally good, not just good, but fantastic, was the fact that I could be aggressive and I could use all that APM and speed that I have to force out mistakes on the other side of the map. And maybe it's just kind of going back to his roots here.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Although, Roddy, in fairness here, when we talk about Reynor and Serral, that wasn't a ZVZ. That was an RVS. That was its own matchup, Reynor and Serral, that so many mind games, and it's really not fair to call that a ZVZ. So, yes, that was a lot of value in the aggression. This is a quick baneling that's coming out of Reynor here. A lot of value in that aggression. But I think even more than that, we have to talk about how closely how good of friends those players are, how often they played. Again, the things that make it more than just kind of a ZVZ matchup.
For sure. And obviously, Reynor will probably feel very confident against YoungYakov in every phase of the game, right? Whether it's early game, mid game, late game, and whether he has to defend or attack. But maybe he's just trying to put on a bit of a show today. He is, of course, putting himself in a position where he needs to find damage. YoungYakov is already feeling that something is not quite right, drops the spine crawler, knows about the timing of that hatchery. But what he doesn't necessarily know, right, is how real this is. You're always afraid that you're going to over-defend and you put yourself very far behind. That spine is not necessarily going to help out in defending the third base. Will Reynor settle for the third hatchery, or does he want a whole lot more?
Well, we're going to have to see. He is droning behind this, so this is not as committal as it looked like at the start. Bailing's on the right side. Well, Yakov actually lost a decent amount of lings. Not sure quite how many, but lost a decent amount of lings on the north side. Reynor, he loses the Bailing, so I guess, you know, maybe it makes it a little bit harder, but that third base is just dead. There are too many lings, there are too many Bailings, and with speed not being done, Yakov could not make the defense happen, but now there are two queens on the low ground. There's a spine here, and Bailing. Oh, okay, well, you can do stuff now. Lings, they're going to find their way in, and even with the queens here, well, Reynor, he's got all the room in the world to harass, to prevent the third base from coming up, or maybe dive in, but it seems like he just wants to go the macro option.
Yeah, since he was droning up behind this, it doesn't really make too much sense to attack into two queens that are well protected by buildings, mineral patches, and backed up by the spine crawler. And Reynor already got damage done. He forced out a spine, he took down a lot of lings, he got a cancel on the third base that was more than halfway done. So Reynor can already be more than happy with what he accomplished. That was obviously the first, I feel like, real big micro error we saw out of YoungYakov, right? And we can't fault him for it. We know how good Reynor is in this matchup. But in that first game, I didn't really see that happen, right? There wasn't one big explosion and we were like, whoa, that was bad on the side of YoungYakov. This connection was a little too big. We can't be making mistakes like that if we want to cause the upset here.
Well, Reynor just got 15 more. With one second, we're not looking at the Banelings here. Reynor connects his single Bane that was at like 10 HP that he'd been shepherding for forever on pretty much every single ling that Yakov had. And again, that third base is going to get canceled. Now, Reynor can't dive through past the lings and past the spines and past the Baneling. But look at where we are right now. Third base is done. 36 drones to 30 army supply for Reynor. And between the two big link connections that have happened, Roddy, do you want to guess? Do you know how many lings Reynor has lost this game?
Yes, I know, so I'm not going to guess because that would be cheating, but he's been incredibly effective. But this is the big difference between Game 1 and Game 2, where we do have two Banelings. Reynor's just on top of everything. Spidey sense is tingling, even finds these two morphing Banes. Reynor has played a very clean second game here, and obviously looked good in the first game too. It's just that I felt in the first game, YoungYakov was a little more on point than he's been here in the second game so far.
And Yakov finally gets one of those Banelings. He does. Raider's been doing such a good job of keeping Banelings alive, but third base is never going to pop up. And now here comes Lings and Banelings and Roaches. We got actually not enough gas for Ravagers right now, so the spine might last just a little bit longer. Banelings trundle forward. They're looking for what they can find. And the second one sitting back. Actually, it's trapped behind a morphing Bane, so you can't use that to keep the Lings from going down. Bit better of a connection, actually, from Yakov, but now the Banelings, they come rolling on in. And the Roaches, they're pretty much undefended, but Ling's coming in from the backside. Actually, not sure where this came from Yakov. That may allow him to make this hold happen. Even still, Lings, they're filing their way in. And it seems like Reynor, his first round of aggression might get held back a little bit, but the damage, it feels like it's just going to be too much regardless of what happens here.
Yeah, obviously it's three bases against two. The queens have gone down. That Spinecrawler has gone down, but Reynor is still not down. We have a couple of extra Banelings show up. These Banelings want to connect. Good move there by Yakov, moving that one Roach forward, but the second Bane still connects with 10 plus drones. And now the Lings, if they make it into the middle line, they can just one-shot drones for days. I think we are 12 seconds away from this game ending. YoungYakov had a honestly great first game, even if it was short. I still thought he looked very good there. In the second game, Reynor is relentless, bringing the fight to the young Russian Zergi. Well, YoungYakov is not going to tap out just yet, but down 22 drones and down a base. I think it's safe to say that the writing is on the wall for this one.
Yeah, this is going to be one of the ones as well that just feels really bad. You're sitting there, it feels like maybe you're fighting back, right? Your opponent can't go kill you. And then you kind of look at the other side and realize that, okay, actually they can't kill you because they've fully droned their third base up. Or mostly droned their third base up. Their lair is just about done, and this has just been kind of the drips and drabs that they can spare to send across the map and keep you down. So Yakov, it feels bad again, not only because he's losing, and that's one notch against him as he tries to stay alive in EU Masters Group B. But on the flip side, you feel like you're holding on, and then you kind of realize that you're really not.
No, I think deep down inside he knows, but yeah, once in a blue moon, you do have a misread, and you're like, whoa, my opponent was a whole lot more committed than I thought he was. And if it was a lesser Zerg that they go up against, you know, I do understand, right? Because sometimes the Zergies are stubborn and they are throwing everything they have at you for 20 drones. They've got moments to drone up, they don't drone up. But what makes Reynor special is that he's able to thread that very fine line between units, drones, and then while you're just defending, fighting, defending, and you hang in there, you're like, it's not that bad, right? And then you take a look at the replay and you're like, oh my god, it is that bad. Like, how did he manage to have that many units and that many drones at the same time? That's kind of what's happening here.
Yeah, so now Reynor, he's got a run by ready on the north side. He's got tons of roaches. The moment he sat back and decided to macro up, his supply ballooned massively. So, yeah, is he going to have +1 ranged? No. Is he going to need it? Also, no. His roach speed is done in 10 seconds. That's really going to be the time he's going to find on the other side of the map. And now, Lings find their way into the main. Drones die once again. Roaches as well. And this is almost, I mean, the game's over, but this is almost game-ending damage in and of itself with more workers, more drones going down. So Reynor into the third. He's got ideas about Banelings into the main if this does not kill Yakov, but let's be real, it will. So a couple Ravagers, they're going to try to do something. +1 range, not ready yet, and Yakov does have to tap out. Reynor, despite the worries about ZVZ and European ZVZ, whatever, he gets his first win on the board.